I used to think love was simple. You meet someone, you build a life, and if you work hard enough, it lasts. My name is Theodore. I'm 37 years old. And this is the story of how everything I believed about love, trust, and commitment fell apart. I met Sarah when I was 26. We were both broke, both working long hours just to get by. She was a waitress at a small diner near the construction site I worked at. I'd come in for coffee every morning, and eventually we started talking. It wasn't anything dramatic, no fireworks or movie moments, just two people slowly learning to lean on each other. We didn't have much, but we had each other. And somehow, that felt like enough. When we first moved in together, it was into a tiny apartment that barely fit a bed and a table. The ceiling leaked when it rained. The heater rattled like it was possessed. But we laughed through it all. We used to lie on the floor on nights we couldn't sleep, dreaming about the future, about the house we'd buy one day, a place we could truly call our own. I worked overtime every chance I got. Nights, weekends, holidays. If there was extra money to be made, I was on it. Sarah was studying part-time, trying to finish her degree. We didn't go out much. Vacations were just long walks in the park or movies we'd watch curled up on the couch. But we were building something. Slowly, brick by brick. After 8 years together, we finally put a down payment on a small home just outside the city. It wasn't anything fancy. A one-story fixer-upper with a squeaky back door and patchy grass out front. But it was ours. I still remember the day we got the keys. She cried. I laughed. We stood in the empty living room, holding hands like we had just won the lottery. I promised her then, this place is going to be filled with love. I built the porch myself. Took me 3 weekends, a bunch of YouTube tutorials, and more trips to the hardware store than I can count. She said it was perfect, that she loved how I made it feel like home. We planted flowers along the walkway. She picked the colors. I laid the soil. Every Saturday morning, we'd sit on that porch with coffee and talk about how lucky we were. Looking back, I didn't see it. The little shifts. The way she stopped talking during those coffee mornings. How she started spending more time on her phone. How her smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. But I didn't ask questions. I trusted her. We had built this life together after all. At least that's what I thought. Every morning I got up early and went to work. I spent long hours on construction sites, doing whatever job needed doing. Sarah worked too, juggling classes and a part-time job. We didn't have much money, but we made sure the bills were paid. Our days followed the same rhythm. I'd leave before the sun was fully up, and sometimes she'd be asleep when I got home late. We didn't talk much during the week, but on weekends we tried to make time for each other. We laughed over cheap dinners, watched old movies, and planned our future. Saving money was slow. We cut back on almost everything. No new clothes, no nights out. We stayed in, cooked meals together, and talked about the house we wanted to buy someday. It wasn't easy, but we were working towards something better. At first, we trusted each other completely. We depended on one another to keep going. I thought we were a team, holding each other up through everything. But over time, something changed. Sarah started spending more time alone, sometimes disappearing for hours without telling me where she was. Our conversations became shorter, less open. I asked if everything was okay, but she said she was just tired. I believed her. We brushed off the little things, the missed calls, the quiet evenings, the way she avoided certain topics. I thought it was stress or school. We were so focused on building our life that we didn't notice what was slipping away. When we finally closed on the house, it felt like a victory. Holding the keys in my hand, I felt proud of what we had done. The place needed work, but it was ours. I spent weekends fixing the porch, putting in hours to make it right. Sarah picked out flowers for the garden, and together we painted the walls. Each small change made the house feel more like home. I told her, "We made it." She smiled, and I believed it too. Looking back, there were small signs I ignored. The way she sometimes seemed distant. The way she'd avoid talking about the future. The nights she stayed late at school without much explanation. But at the time, I was too focused on what we had built to see anything else. I came home like I always did. Same street, same driveway, same house. I opened the front door and stepped inside. Something felt off. It was quiet. Too quiet. I called out, "Sarah?" Nothing. I walked into the living room. Empty. The couch was gone. The coffee table, the TV. I went into the kitchen. The chairs, the plates, the photos on the fridge. Gone. Every drawer pulled out, nothing inside. I opened the bedroom door. The bed was stripped bare, her clothes, her books, all of it missing. Her side of the closet looked like no one had ever used it. Even the mirror on the wall was taken down. Then I saw the papers on the kitchen table. A single envelope. My name on the front. I opened it. Divorce papers, signed, dated, no letter, no explanation. Just her signature at the bottom of every page. I checked the garage. Her car was gone. I tried calling her, straight to voicemail. I texted, no reply. I checked with her sister, nothing. Her friends stopped answering. I stood in the middle of the living room with nothing left. No sound, no furniture, no answer. One moment I had a home. The next, it was just a shell. Everything we built, gone. And I had no idea why. I called her again. No answer. Just straight to voicemail like before. I left a message. Then another. Then one more. I told her to call me back. I said I didn't care what happened, I just wanted to talk. I sent a text. Then another. Then a whole string of them. Hours passed. Nothing. I called her mom. She said she hadn't spoken to Sarah in a while. I asked if she knew anything. She paused, said no, and hung up. I called her sister, straight to voicemail. I tried again later. Same thing. I messaged her best friend. I said I was worried. She saw the message. Didn't reply. I tried people we hadn't spoken to in years. Someone had to know something. I scrolled through her social media. No new posts. I checked her tagged photos. Nothing recent. I went through our emails. I looked at the shared calendar. All the dates were gone. I checked our bank account. She'd pulled out half the money 3 days before she left. The transfer was clean, like she knew exactly what she was doing. I started asking questions I didn't want to ask. Had I missed something? Was there someone else? Was this planned? I looked through old messages. I tried to remember if we'd fought, if I'd said something, if I'd done something. I couldn't sleep. I'd stare at my phone for hours. Wake up and check it like I missed something. Go back through her texts. Read them over and over. Look for anything that would tell me why. I even called her work. They said she'd quit the week before, no forwarding contact. I sat in the empty living room, looking at the walls, the ones we painted. I remembered every word we said when we chose that color. I tried to make sense of any of it, but nothing made sense. I went to the bank to freeze our joint account. The clerk asked if I wanted to keep access to the other account. I told her we only had one. She looked again. There was a second one, opened 6 months earlier, in her name only. But it had my income going into it. My direct deposit had been switched. I asked to see the statements. The money had been moving, withdrawals, transfers, steady, clean. Nothing big enough to raise questions, just enough to stay hidden. I drove to the county office, asked about the house. The clerk pulled up the file. The deed was in her name, only her name. I told him that couldn't be right. He showed me the paperwork. She signed it. The seller signed it. I never did. I asked when it was sold. He gave me the date. 2 weeks ago. Sold for less than we paid. She didn't even list it. Just signed it over to a cash buyer. Closed fast. No notice. I asked who bought it. He gave me a name. I searched it. Nothing came up. No phone number, no address. Just a name. I kept digging. Looked at everything we ever shared. I found an email. It was short, 1 line. It was to someone I didn't recognize, but the address sounded familiar. I checked her old phone bill, looked at the call history. His number showed up a lot. Same number, again and again. At night, while I was working, I remembered the name. It hit me. Her ex. The one she said she hadn't spoken to in years. The one she told me not to worry about. The one she used to cry over when we first met. I searched again. Found a photo. It was him. Same guy. New town. New name on a lease. Lease started last week. Same day she emptied the house. I called the agent who handled the sale. I told him I lived in that house. I built that porch. He said he only worked with the owner. He said she signed the papers in person. Smiled the whole time. I sat in my truck outside the building. I didn't speak, I didn't move. She sold everything, took the money, left with him, and never said a word. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. Old photos stared back at me. Smiles, trips, dinners, all the moments we thought were real. I clicked through them, one by one. Nothing looked off. But I kept going. In some photos, she wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at her phone. I never noticed that before. In others, she seemed quiet, like her mind was somewhere else. I told myself that was just how things were sometimes. Now I wasn't sure. I went through her email, the one she forgot to log out of on the tablet. At first, nothing stood out, just newsletters, work stuff. Then I checked the archives. There were messages going back years. Same name, always at night. Short replies, meeting spots, random little notes. Nothing open, nothing clear. But it was him. Always him. I clicked a thread from 2 years ago. It started casual. Then one of them said, "I still think about that night." That was the same week she told me she was visiting her aunt. I remembered she came back quiet. Said the trip was boring. I believed her. I checked her call log on the old phone she left behind. The same number came up again and again. Late nights. Weekends when I was working overtime. I started thinking about old conversations, moments I brushed off, like the time I asked her if she ever thought about him. She paused and said, "We all remember parts of our past." I let it go. I called a friend we both knew. I asked him if he noticed anything. He hesitated, said he didn't want to get in the middle. I told him he already was. He said, there were times she seemed distant, like she was only half there. I asked if he ever said anything. He said, "I figured it wasn't my business." Another friend told me she always had one foot out the door. She said, "I didn't know it would end like this, but I knew she wasn't all in." I asked them why no one told me. They didn't answer. Just silence on the other end. I went back through messages we sent each other, from when we first met to the week she left. It was all there, but none of it felt the same. Every line I read sounded different now. Every smile in a photo looked like it belonged to someone else. I walked into the law office with a folder in my hand. Inside were copies of the bank transfers, the sale agreement, and the divorce papers. I sat down across from the lawyer, a man who'd probably seen it all. He asked me to start from the beginning. I told him everything. How I came home to an empty house, how she was gone, how the house was sold, and how I didn't sign a single paper. He looked through the folder, flipping page after page without saying much. Then he leaned back and said, "Did you know the house was in her name only?" I said no. I told him I was there when we bought it. I paid for the inspections, the closing fees, the work done on the porch. He nodded, said none of that mattered. What mattered was the title. He explained that if my name wasn't on the deed, then I had no legal ownership. I asked how that was possible. He said it happens more than people think. Sometimes one partner handles the paperwork and the other just trusts them. He said, unless I could prove she signed it under false terms, the sale was legal. I asked about the money, the joint account, the second account she opened. He told me if my income went into her personal account and I didn't contest it, it would be hard to claim it now. I asked about the divorce papers. He said I had the right to respond, but the terms wouldn't change much unless I could prove deceit. I asked if I could get anything back. He said maybe, but it would take time. Court, hearings, evidence. He said I could try to show how the assets were divided unfairly, but since she moved fast and left no trace, it would be hard. I walked out with a list of steps: file a response to the divorce, request a formal audit of the accounts, gather records, messages, emails, receipts, everything. He said I'd need to show a pattern, not just shock. I spent the next week calling banks, printing statements, organizing dates. I called the real estate office, requested every document they had. I looked up property laws, learned words I never thought I'd need. I sent emails to her lawyer, got cold replies. "We've received your response. We'll be in touch." That was it. I worked days and stayed up nights. I went over everything with a pen, making notes in the margins, building a case, not to win her back, just to get back what I could. Each call was a reminder. Each letter from her attorney made it clear I was alone in this. But I kept going, because if I didn't, no one would. I got her number from a mutual friend, one I didn't think would still talk to her. but he did. He gave it to me without asking questions. Said, "Do what you need to do." I sat with it for an hour before calling. She picked up on the second ring. There was a pause. Then she said my name like she didn't expect to hear it again. I told her we needed to talk. She said, "There's nothing left to say." I said, "You owe me a conversation." We met in a public spot, a small coffee shop just off the highway. I got there early. She came in 10 minutes late, sat down across from me without ordering anything, just stared. I started with a question. "Why?" She said she didn't plan it this way. I said, "You opened another account. You changed the deed. You planned every step." She didn't deny it. She just said, "I wasn't happy." I said, "We built a life. We built a home." She said, "I tried. I really did. But part of me never left him." I asked if she was ever going to tell me. She shook her head. "You wouldn't have let me go." I said, "You could have just walked away. You didn't have to take everything." She looked out the window, said, "He waited for me. You were comfortable. He made me feel alive." I told her, "You made me believe we had something real." She said, "We did, for a while, but it faded." I asked if any of it meant anything to her. The years, the late nights, the porch I built with my own hands. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she looked at me and said, "I never stopped loving him." That was it. No apology, no regret. She stood up, said, "I hope you find peace," and walked out. I stayed in that chair for a long time, watching the door she walked out of, but I never followed. I stopped answering calls, stopped replying to messages. I deleted my social media, turned off notifications, let everything go quiet. Most days I didn't leave the house. I didn't eat much. I slept in clothes, didn't care what time it was. Bills piled up, mail stacked near the door. I'd wake up, sit in the same chair, and do nothing. Some days I'd walk past the mirror and not recognize myself. Other days, I wouldn't look at all. I thought about the porch, about the evenings we used to sit there. I'd remember the jokes, the dinner plans, the way she used to hum while folding clothes. All of it played on repeat. Every moment now felt like a lie. I kept checking my phone even though I knew she wouldn't call. I went back to the lawyer once. He asked how I was doing. I didn't say much. He gave me some updates, told me what to expect next. I nodded, signed a paper, left. A friend of mine, Marcus, showed up one afternoon. He didn't call ahead, just knocked. I opened the door. He stepped in, looked around, and said, "Man, this isn't it." I told him I was fine. He said, "No, you're not." He sat me down, asked if I'd eaten. I hadn't. He didn't give me a speech. He just stayed for a while, made some coffee, told me to take a shower, said, "You don't have to fix everything today, just start with one thing." I nodded, but I didn't move. He came again the next day, brought food, cleaned up the kitchen a little, handed me a list of therapists, said one of them helped his cousin when she went through a divorce. I didn't call right away. The papers sat on the counter for a week. Then one night, I couldn't sleep. I picked it up, picked a name, and made the call. The first session was short. I didn't say much. But I went back. Week by week, I started showing up, talking, listening. I started walking again, just around the block at first, then longer routes. I started cooking small meals, paid some bills, answered a few texts. I didn't feel better, but I wasn't stuck anymore. And slowly, I started to accept it. Not forgive, not forget. Just accept that it happened, that I was still here, that maybe that was enough, for now. I drove by the house 4 times before I stopped. I parked across the street, left the engine running, just sat there for a while. It looked smaller than I remembered. The porch was still there, the one I built. Same wood, same nails. They hadn't changed anything. Even the garden stones were still in place. I walked across slowly. No one came out. No dogs barking. Just quiet. I stood on the sidewalk and stared for a long time. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to go closer, but I did. I stepped onto the porch. Every step creaked just like it used to. I could still feel where I'd overcut the third plank. I could see the spot we argued about stain colors. I sat on the edge, same spot I always picked, next to the post with the little notch I never sanded down. There was no one next to me this time. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the extra key, the one I kept in the garage. I looked at it, held it between my fingers. I didn't know why I still had it. Maybe part of me thought I'd come back. Maybe I just forgot it was there. I placed the key on the porch. No words, no ceremony. Just left it there, right on the wood. Then I stood up, took one last look around. The steps, the railing, the spot where she used to hang the wind chime. And then I walked back to the car. I didn't look back again. On the way home, I didn't take the usual road. I let the GPS pick a different route. Felt like the right thing to do. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. 1 bedroom, basic kitchen, no porch. But it was quiet. I bought a second-hand couch, a folding table, a mattress that came rolled up in a box. The first night, I slept on the floor. The next day, I assembled the bed frame and didn't stop until everything had a place. I started tracking every dollar. No more joint accounts, no shared plans, just me. I picked up extra shifts, sold tools I didn't need, took on side jobs on weekends. It was slow, but I watched my balance grow, week by week. I started keeping receipts. I kept folders for bills, taxes, contracts. I knew how fast things could fall apart now. So I paid attention. I asked questions. I didn't sign anything without reading it twice. I didn't rush into anything, not people, not promises, just work, progress, one piece at a time. I joined a small community center, helped build shelves, repaired a roof for them, got to know a few folks. Nothing deep, just people showing up. One of the regulars, an older guy named Pete, asked me one day why I kept showing up. I told him I just needed something steady. He nodded, said, "Then keep hammering." And I did. Over time, I stopped thinking about what she did every day. The noise in my head got quieter. I focused on what I could fix, what I could build. I stopped asking why. Some questions don't have answers worth chasing. When people ask what happened, I tell them it's a long story, and it is, but I don't lead with the pain anymore. I talk about what came after, what I learned, what I won't forget. If I could talk to someone going through it now, I'd say this: pay attention, protect what's yours, don't ignore the quiet signs. But more than anything, don't let what someone else did stop you from starting again. She took the house. But I found myself. If you're watching this and you've been through something like it, or if you're in it now, listen close. You're not alone. You're not the first to be blindsided, and you won't be the last. But you don't have to stay broken. You don't have to carry someone else's lies like they belong to you. Know this: love doesn't mean losing your name on a deed. It doesn't mean blind trust with no questions asked. Love should never ask you to forget yourself. If you're in a relationship, married or not, read everything. Ask who owns what. Know how things are structured legally. Protect your name. Protect your future. Because no one ever thinks it'll happen to them. Until they come home and the door doesn't open the same. Until they sit down at a kitchen table that isn't theirs anymore. And if it has already happened to you, if someone took your time, your money, your safety, your peace, don't waste the rest of your life replaying it. Take it apart, learn what you missed, then let it stay where it is, behind you. And to anyone who thinks they're too smart to be fooled, too cautious to be used, too strong to be lied to, don't confuse confidence with clarity. Pay attention, love with your eyes open. But above all, don't lose yourself. Not in the idea of someone, not in the promises, not in the plans. Keep a part of yourself that no one else can touch. Because at the end of it all, your peace isn't in a house, it's not in a name change or a bank account, it's in knowing who you are after everything's been taken and still being able to stand. That's what matters. Thank you for listening to my story. If you like this kind of content, kindly like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Thank you.